All right, welcome to the Patriot Hour update video. I have a special guest here in the studio today, Tony. Tony. Prior military, United States Marine Corps. Hoorah. Why don't you take a minute, Tony, and tell us about yourself? When did you go to boot camp? When did you get out? What did you do? And just let's start there.
Went in the Marine Corps April 1979, got out 1983 in August 1st.
And your schooling after boot camp, what was your MOS?
After boot camp, it's 0311, infantry.
Okay, infantry. Now, is there ever any thought that you might stay in?
At one point in time, yes.
All right. We are going to get into some Q post here. We have me and Tony, before we started recording today, we went ahead and had viewed some Bill Cooper videos. So we are going over some Q post for those of you that might have watched my other video from yesterday. You might want to check it out. If not, I went over the latest updates, but what we have here, me and Tony were talking about Bill Cooper, and we actually watched, and I showed yesterday a video that I made, a tribute video for Bill Cooper, William Milton Cooper. This is a little excerpt from his book, Behold the Pale Horse, Chapter 12, page 225. The government encouraged the manufacture and importation of military firearms for the criminals to use. This is intended to foster a feeling of insecurity, which would lead the American people to voluntarily disarm themselves by passing laws against firearms. Using drugs and hypnosis on mental patients is in a process called Orion. The CIA inclinated the desire in these people to open fire on schoolyards and thus inflame the anti-gun lobby. This plan is well underway and so far is working perfectly. The middle class is begging the government to do away with the Second Amendment. Again, from 1991, a book called Behold the Pale Horse. I've read it. I suggest you do the same. Bill Cooper, former United States Naval Intelligence Briefing Team member, reveals information that remains hidden from the public eye. This information has been kept in top-secret government files since the 1940s. His audience hear the truth unfold as he writes about the assassination of John F. Kennedy, the war on drugs, the secret government, and UFOs. Following Bill Cooper, this is my own opinion here, folks, but in his late life, he did not believe in the UFO conspiracy anymore. It goes into a whole nother matter, but he basically he believes that the Navy and the Air Force had a fleet of these anti-gravity technologies, but it wasn't really what you thought it is. Bill is lucid, rational, and a powerful speaker whose intent is to inform and to empower his audience. Standing room only was normal. His presentation and information transcended partisan affiliations as he clearly addressed issues in a way that was striking impact on listeners of all backgrounds and interests. He has spoken to many groups throughout the United States and has appeared regularly on many radio talk shows and on television. In 1988, Bill decided to talk due to events at the time taking place worldwide, events that he had seen plans for back in the early 1970s. Bill correctly predicted the lowering of the Iron Curtain, the fall of the Berlin Wall, and the invasion of Panama. All Bill's predictions were on record well before the events occurred. Bill is not a psychic. His information comes from top secret documents that he read while with the intelligence briefings team and from over 17 years of research. Q puts big. So now, Tony, you were saying at some point in the 90s that you basically, went to an event. Some of your buddies from work had, talked you in, not talked you in, but invited you to go. They were going to see some people speak about, New World Order type things. So what was your, what was your take on that? Like when and what was your experience like? And do you remember anything about it, or what can you tell us of the audience?
Well, what really got me to go to it was the gun rights. They were trying to shut it down way back when.
Okay.
So that got me to go. And what the people had to say, I've already seen some changes. And then when they got into the military style of it, military is guinea pigs for the government's bad use of things.
So at the time, there was things going on with the guns as well, like just like today, it's repeating, and they're coming after and attacking. So these guys went over the guns. They probably went over like the money that was going to be changing.
Yes, the guy said the $100 bill, the 20, and the fives would change. The ones would be left alone, which has happened. And I knew this in the 90s.
So did they speculate on why the money would be changing?
What he told us was it was to stop counterfeiting, but it was just a way to track the money, is what he basically was telling us. It was to track the money, not cover counterfeiting. Because actually, the money nowadays is easier to counterfeit than the old money.
No, and I agree. If you remember, all through the 80s, we had checkbooks, and when you wrote a check, it took time in the line. Then they'd typically ask for a couple of forms of ID. And to me, I know that checks back then could be counterfeited, and people were making fake checks and all that, but it was just a little bit more of a process. And then to go along with, a fake checkbook, you'd have to have a fake ID and all this credentials, but, it was possible. They have pushed and pushed away from checks to these credit cards. And then, the last decade, you've seen all these companies that push for credit cards, but they're taking a lot of their profit money and making commercials about how credit cards aren't secure and how they're getting ripped off. They had them series of commercials where there'd be like a guy talking like a girl or, vice versa. And they're acting like they got, their identity stolen. And these people are, letting us know that credit cards aren't very secure. Don't, put too much into them. Like keeping you, like they really, really push the agenda that they, credit cards weren't secure and they get stolen all the time and your identity. And so it's like they're kind of getting you there to not be happy with how credit cards work, but to use them for right now. We want everyone to have it, but we're also telling you there's going to be something else coming because these aren't secure enough. Maybe a little chip in your hand or something, because,
Actually, that is coming.
Yeah, well, that's, if you read into it, that's what they say, yes. Did they go over anything like that day, or just?
No. Well, I think they did say a little bit, not a whole lot about the debit card.
Okay.
Not so much about credit cards, but it was the debit card. Getting away from money eventually.
Okay.
And I had forgotten about that until just now.
Yeah. Well, they talked about the monies. I'm just now. What about this former NASA guy? He had worked for NASA, high levels. Just
He was still working for him when he did this.
Oh wow. Yeah.
He didn't say his real name, but it was out there. And for me to remember that far back is, it ain't happening.
All right, folks, there you go on some of that. Now we were, again, like I was telling you, talking about Bill Cooper. And then, I was showing him the queue. This is Tony's first day in the studio here. So we are spending some time before we did this. We watched a Bill Cooper video, the one that I did yesterday, or posted on my video yesterday, one that I made probably 6-7 months back. And we are going over the queue post and what queue clearance even means. So I had brought this up here. A queue clearance or queue type clearance is United States Department of Energy, DOE, security clearance. That is roughly comparable to the United States Department of Defense top secret clearance with sensitive compartmentalized information access, TS/SCI. It is important, most permissive clearance granted by the United States government, acting as the sole means of access to the vast compartmentalizations, top secret and secret restricted data, and DOE security areas. Anyone possessing an active Q clearance is always categorized as holding a national security critical sensitive position. So, you got the sensitive level 3, and then additionally, most Q cleared incumbents will have collateral responsibilities designating them as a level 4, national security specialist sensitive personnel. With these two different designations standing as the highest risk security levels, occupants of these positions hold extraordinary accountability, harnessing the potential to cause exceptionally grave and inestimable damage to the national security of the United States. Now, as my job in the military, we all had secret. Anyone that was I worked alongside with on a personal basis, we had secret because of going into restricted spaces on the ship I was assigned to early on. So we had secret. And then after I got retrained and went down a different path in the computer realm, and I had top secret, but I did not have any of these levels of Q clearance with a different structure. All right, warning. So yeah, we're not going to go over any more posts today on that. There was nothing new that came out since early yesterday morning. So, Tony, anything else interesting that you've come across in your ventures?
Yeah, the corporate world is going back to like the 30s and 40s, where you work for bare minimum while corporate is getting rich and the working man is basically falling to the wayside.
Getting poorer and poorer. What about corruption? Do you believe it exists in the uppermost parts of the political realms?
That's always been there. Always. Some just hide it better than others.
Yeah, and then even sometimes it trickles down into the politics of places like we hang out at.
Oh, that's rampant.
It's rampant. With absolute power comes absolute corruption.
That is 100% the truth.
There's an old saying from the old book Animal Farm on that. It was absolute power corrupts absolutely. And I've found that to be true of myself.
They don't trust us because they don't trust themselves.
Very good point. So that was it. We were just doing a little update there. Me and Tony had done a little bit of research this morning. We watched some stuff on the Fed Reserve. We watched a Bill Cooper tribute video I made, and I introduced him to that. He's interested. He's going to probably end up getting the file from me and be able to himself do, kind of listen and backtrack on old Bill Cooper. It's very pertinent stuff. It's real good stuff to just have around and listen to when you're maybe cleaning, or you don't have to headphones at work, or just pumping out of the stereo at home while you're sitting around. So all right, well, that is it for today. For this video, I will probably be back later on, do a little update. If anything, from Q comes out, I'll definitely be back and do a little, pop off a little video. So other than that, I am Mike. That was Tony from the Patriot Hour. We will see you on the next video.